Have you ever felt that relentless pressure? You know, that never-ending to-do list, the inbox that just keeps overflowing.
Oh, absolutely.
And despite working incredibly hard, you just feel like you aren't making headway on what truly matters to you. It's that nagging sense of being constantly busy, but rarely effective.
It's a feeling so many of us share, isn't it? It leads straight to overwhelm and, yeah, too often settling for less than we're actually capable of.
Exactly. But what if there was a profoundly simple yet really, really powerful secret to cutting through all that noise? A way to transform your whole approach to productivity and success, to, truly unlock extraordinary results.
Well, that sounds like exactly what we need.
That's precisely what we're diving into today. Our deep dive takes us into a truly groundbreaking book, The One Thing, by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan.
A fantastic read, really influential.
It really is. And our mission for you, listening right now, is to pull out the most potent, the most impactful insights from this work. We want to make them not just easy to understand, but actually fun to engage with.
Yeah, get to the heart of it. We want to unveil the deeper meaning behind these principles, hopefully enlighten you, and most importantly, motivate you to actually implement these lessons, to transform how you approach your life, maybe starting, right now.
We'll kick things off by exploring the core idea of the one thing. It sounds simple, but it's deceptively powerful, and the incredible ripple effect it can create in your life.
Then we'll need to confront and debunk some common lies. Those widely believed falsehoods that often derail us, the kind of truthiness that sounds right but is actually holding you back.
Right, those myths about success. And finally, we'll arm you with actionable truths and strategies, things like the ingenious focusing question and the real power of time blocking.
These are the tools, really, that can help you unlock all those extraordinary possibilities just waiting within your life.
Okay, let's get started. The entire philosophy of the one thing really hinges on this deceptively simple idea, going small and understanding the domino effect. It all starts with a pretty compelling proverb.
Indeed. The authors open with an old Russian proverb. If you chase two rabbits, you will not catch either one.
Huh. Yeah, it's a vivid image, isn't it?
It really is, and it immediately sets the stage for the core concept. Trying to do too many things at the same time it dilutes your efforts. You end up achieving nothing, potentially.
Which resonates instantly because, honestly, in our modern lives, it feels like we're chasing 10 rabbits, not just 2.
Exactly. So when the book talks about going small, it's crucial to clarify this. It doesn't mean thinking small or limiting your ambition. Not at all.
Okay, good distinction.
It's about strategically narrowing your focus. It means consciously choosing to ignore all the things you could do, to prioritize the one thing you absolutely should do.
That feels counterintuitive, though, doesn't it? Because most people assume big success demands doing more. More hours, more tasks, more projects piled on.
Right. That's the common belief. But this book argues for the complete opposite. Just look at overloaded calendars and those endless to-do lists. You see why people feel overwhelmed and, ultimately settle for less. They're trapped in the belief that everything matters equally.
And the cost. Oh, man, the cost of spreading yourself thin, trying to tackle everything at once, it's immense. The book spells it out clearly. Missed deadlines, disappointing results, sky-high stress, long hours, lost sleep.
Poor diet, no exercise, even missed moments with family and friends. It's not just about work productivity, it eats into your quality of life.
Yeah. The author Gary Keller, he actually recounts a time his own company was floundering. Despite his intense efforts, his life felt like it was just in turmoil.
And that was a real turning point for him. He sought out a coach who, after looking at his whole company, gave him this surprisingly simple solution.
Which was?
To turn things around, he needed to focus on finding just 14 specific people to fill key positions. Just 14.
14 people, that's it. He must have been shocked, expecting something way more complex, right?
Totally shocked. But the coach's insight was, profound. He said, Jesus needed 12, but you'll need 14.
Okay, so what happened?
Keller essentially fired himself as CEO in a way and made finding those 14 individuals his singular focus, his one thing.
Wow.
And within 3 years, that intense, concentrated effort led to sustained 40% year-over-year growth for almost a decade.
40% growth. That's incredible.
It really is. His company went from just a regional player to a major international contender, all born from that extreme focus.
So that personal experience directly led to refining this whole approach.
Exactly. It led him to refine his coaching advice. He started shortening his list from, say, 3 things down to 2 until he finally landed on that really powerful question. What's the one thing you can do this week such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary?
The focusing question. We'll definitely dive into that more.
Yeah, and that's when results for his clients truly skyrocketed. It just illustrates that going small is this simple yet profoundly effective approach to getting extraordinary results. Its sole purpose is to guide you to the single most crucial point, focusing on one thing.
When you narrow your focus like that as much as possible, you inevitably find yourself staring right at that one pivotal activity. That's the whole point.
Precisely.
And the true power of finding that one thing is captured beautifully by what the authors call the domino effect. They use amazing visual picture Domino Day in the Netherlands back in 2009.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
Over 4.4 million dominoes, all meticulously lined up, and a single, almost imperceptible flick of just one domino
Unleashed this massive chain reaction, over 94,000 joules of energy, enough for hundreds of push-ups, apparently.
Which is cool, but what's truly astonishing, and this blew my mind, is that it isn't just a linear progression.
Right. This is where the physics comes in. In 1983, a physicist named Lorne Whitehead discovered that a single domino can actually topple another domino that is 50% larger than itself.
50% larger. Just think about that for a second. That changes everything. It becomes a geometric progression.
Exactly. And the implications are just mind-boggling. The 10th domino in a chain like that would be almost as tall as an NFL quarterback, like Peyton Manning.
Okay.
The 18th would rival the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Whoa.
The 23rd. Taller than the Eiffel Tower. The 31st domino would loom over Mount Everest.
Mount Everest.
And get this. The 57th domino would practically bridge the distance between the Earth and the Moon.
Okay, that's insane. But what a powerful metaphor. It makes the potential power of finding and focusing on your one thing just undeniable.
It really brings us to a crucial insight. Getting extraordinary results is all about creating a domino effect in your life.
But life isn't like setting up physical dominoes, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't neatly line everything up for us.
No, unfortunately not. Highly successful people know this. So what do? Every day, they consciously line up their priorities. They identify that lead domino, that one thing that, if done, will make everything else easier or unnecessary.
And then they whack away at it until it falls. I like that phrase.
Me too. It's about persistence on the right thing.
So it's really not about doing everything at once. It's about understanding that extraordinary success is sequential, not simultaneous.
That's the core insight. You do the right thing, then you do the next right thing. Over time, this disciplined, sequential action adds up, and that geometric potential of success is unleashed.
That phrase, over time, feels really important here.
The power of over time just cannot be overstated. Think about it. When you see someone with a lot of knowledge, how did they get it?
Bit by bit, over time.
Right. One piece at a time, skills are developed.
Over time. Practice session by practice session.
Exactly. Accomplishments, wealth, it's all built sequentially, one thing at a time. The absolute key is consistency over time by focusing relentlessly on that singular, most important task. This really provides a clear, actionable path for you, listening now, to build toward your biggest goals.
And you really do see this pattern everywhere when you start looking for it. Success leaves clues, as the book says.
Absolutely. Think about businesses. So many extraordinarily successful companies are famous for one product or one service, especially initially.
Like KFC, Colonel Sanders and his secret chicken recipe. That was his one thing.
Right, or Intel and microprocessors, even Starbucks, with its intense focus on, well, coffee, their one thing, undeniably drove their initial massive success.
What about tech companies now, like Google?
Good example. Google's one thing is undeniably search, which then, like that lead domino, makes their key source of revenue-selling advertising possible. Everything else flows from mastering search.
Even Star Wars, the book mentions that.
Yeah, the authors argue that while the merchandise revenue is huge, the movies themselves are the one thing. Because the movies make the toys, the games, everything else possible. It's about identifying that foundational element.
That makes sense. And it's not just businesses, right? Individuals harness this power, too. The book highlights that no one is truly self-made.
Such an important point. There's almost always one person who makes all the difference. Walt Disney had his brother Roy. Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart.
His father-in-law, right? L.S. Robson, who gave him crucial loans.
Exactly. Oprah Winfrey credits her father for saving her, and Jeffrey D. Jacobs for persuading her to start Harpo Productions. even the Beatles.
George Martin, a fifth Beatle.
Practically. In the studio, translating their raw talent into that incredible sound, everyone, no matter how successful, seems to have that one person who is the most significant influence or catalyst.
And it extends to one passion or one skill as well.
Definitely. Pat Matthews, a great impressionist painter, turned his passion into a profession simply by committing to painting one painting a day. His one thing was consistent creation.
Or that Italian tour guide, Angelo Morico.
Right. Built his entire successful business from his singular passion for his country. It's about that intense emotion or that one learned ability that defines them or drives them forward.
Even Michael Phelps, you mentioned him earlier. Despite being told he couldn't focus because of ADHD.
He channeled his discipline into one thing, swimming, became the most decorated Olympian ever, and his coach actually calls his ability to focus his strongest attribute now. Remarkable turnaround, all through focus.
But the ultimate example the book gives, kind of uniting product, person, passion, and skill, is Bill Gates.
Yeah, that's a powerful sequence. His passion for computers led him to one skill, programming. He met one person, Paul Allen, who became his partner.
They sent one letter to one person, Ed Roberts.
Which gave them one shot at writing code for one computer, the Altair 8800. That was the start of Microsoft, with one goal, developing basic interpreters.
And even later, with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
They chose one thing, tackling really tough problems like global health and education. And within that, they zeroed in on one thing, stamping out infectious disease, primarily through one tool, vaccines. It's one thing thinking, layered throughout his life.
Wow, that really is living the one thing. It's clear the world is just overflowing with opportunities, but that abundance can, paradoxically, be completely overwhelming.
Absolutely. The constant bombardment of information choices, emails, notifications, it makes us feel like we're attempting way too much and accomplishing far too little.
And that's precisely why the one thing feels so crucial right now. It's a big, profound idea about success, but it's wrapped in this disarmingly simple package. It offers a clear path.
A path to extraordinary results. But before we dive deeper into how it works, we absolutely have to confront the myths and misinformation that prevent us from fully embracing it.
Right. These are what the authors call the lies that mislead and derail us. Let's get into those. Okay, let's talk about these lies that mislead and derail us. These are the pervasive beliefs we think are true about success, but they're actually often subtly holding us back.
Yeah, and the section kicks off with a really powerful quote from Mark Twain.
Which one?
It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so.
Huh. That's perfect. It sets up this whole concept of truthiness.
Exactly. Truthiness, a term coined by Stephen Colbert, right? It's that truth that comes from the gut, not books.
Which feels so relevant today with 247 news, endless opinions online.
Totally. Truthiness captures those accidental or sometimes intentional falsehoods that just sound truthy enough for us to accept them as facts without really checking.
And the problem is, we tend to act on what we believe, even if those beliefs are completely wrong.
Which, as the book says, muddles our thinking, misguides our actions, and sidetracks our success. It makes it incredibly difficult to fully embrace the simplicity and power of the one thing.
The authors give some great examples of these widely believed myths, like the frog slowly boiling in water.
Right, or fish stinking from the head down, or Cortez burning his ships. Things people repeat as fact but aren't actually true.
Or bet on the jockey, not the horse.
Yeah. These myths get so ingrained they actually influence critical decisions, subtly steering us way off course without us even realizing it.
So if we're serious about unlocking extraordinary results, we have to recognize and put these lies to bed. The book outlines 6 specific ones.
6 lies that keep us from living the one thing. They call them fool's gold, diverting us from true success.
Okay, what are they?
Everything matters equally, multitasking, a disciplined life, willpower is always on will call, a balanced life, and big is bad.
All right, let's tackle the first one. Lie 1. Everything matters equally. This feels like maybe the most fundamental misunderstanding.
I think it is. While equality is obviously a vital ideal in human rights and society, in the real world of achievement and results, things are just never truly equal.
Right. No 2 students get the exact same grade. No 2 athletes perform identically.
Exactly. Success isn't a game won by whoever simply does the most. Quantity doesn't equal quality of outcome.
This is why those traditional to-do lists we all make are so often flawed, isn't it?
Totally. They're often just survival lists, as the book calls them, a chaotic inventory of thoughts, not a purposefully created success list.
The first item on my list is usually just the first thing that popped into my head that morning. There's no strategy there.
Precisely. And here's the real kicker. Checking off 100 items on a list doesn't necessarily mean you've achieved anything significant. You might just be incredibly busy doing things that don't truly move the needle.
So how do achievers operate differently?
Achievers, the book argues, have this keen eye for the essential. They actually pause. They decide what matters and then allow what matters to drive their day. They work from a clear sense of priority.
Meaning they do the important stuff first.
Yes, sooner rather than later. And they defer the lesser tasks, sometimes. Well, sometimes indefinitely. They just don't get done.
This sounds a lot like Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule.
It's deeply rooted in it. Joseph M. Juran, a pioneer in quality control, identified this principle based on Vilfredo Pareto's observation back in Italy. 80% of the land owned by 20% of the people.
And Juran realized this applies almost everywhere.
Yeah, broadly. A minority of causes, inputs, or effort consistently lead to a majority of the results, the outputs, the rewards.
But it's not always exactly 80-20.
Social point. While it's often stated as 80-20, the principle is fundamentally about inequality, not those specific numbers. It could be 90-20 or 70-10 or even 6-55.
The key takeaway is just that some things matter more than others, a lot more.
A lot more. And a typical to-do list only transforms into a powerful success list when you rigorously apply that Pareto thinking to it.
And the authors push us to go even further, right?
Yeah.
To practice extreme Pareto.
Yes. Don't just find the 20% that matters most. Find the vital few of the vital few. Go deeper.
The author's own example is fantastic. He challenged his team to brainstorm 100 ways to become top players in their industry.
They narrowed it down to 10, and then they chose just one big idea.
He would write a book.
Right. And 8 years later, that single book became a national bestseller, spawned a series selling over 1 million copies, and fundamentally changed their industry image. One idea out of 100.
That is extreme Pareto.
Wow. There's another great relatable example from his own life learning guitar. He only had 20 minutes a day.
Okay, that's relatable.
So he asked the legendary guitarist Eric Johnson for advice. Johnson told him to practice his scales, specifically the minor blues scale.
Just one scale.
Just one scale. Mastering that one scale, Johnson said, would unlock the entire world of classic rock and roll solos. It simplified a complex scale into a single, high-leverage activity.
Okay, so distilling this first lie down for someone listening, what's the big takeaway? How do you apply this?
Well, the first shift is profound. Stop chasing busyness and commit to deep productivity by truly going small. Let what matters most genuinely drive your day. Don't just say it, do it.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Absolutely. Second, go extreme. Once you've identified what truly matters, keep drilling down. Keep asking what matters most until you're left with only one thing. That becomes your core activity, your absolute top priority.
And third?
Third, learn to say, not now. Whether you mean later or maybe even never, the point is to consciously decline anything else you could do until your most important work, your one thing, is done.
So don't get trapped in that check-off game just for the sake of feeling busy.
Exactly. Success is about doing what matters most, not merely completing every single item on an endless, overwhelming list.
Okay, powerful stuff. Let's move on to lie 2, multitasking. This one feels like it's everywhere. It's probably one of the most widely accepted lies of productivity, yet the book says it's incredibly damaging.
It really is. The book states it unequivocally. Multitasking is a lie. People accept it as effective. Some even pride themselves on being good multitaskers.
Oh yeah, I've heard people brag about it.
But the reality is it's neither efficient nor effective, period.
And there's research to back this up.
Strong research. A 2009 study by Clifford Nass at Stanford University is highlighted. They divided students into high and low multitaskers, actually expecting the high multitaskers to perform better.
Yeah.
They were completely wrong. Nass concluded, quite bluntly, multitaskers were just lousy at everything.
Lousy at everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were outperformed on every measure and, in his words, were suckers for irrelevancy. They couldn't filter out unimportant information.
That's a harsh assessment.
Yeah.
It's interesting, too, the origin of the word multitasking. It wasn't even about humans initially.
Right. It was coined back in the 1960s to describe computers that were, alternately sharing one CPU. The word got misapplied to humans as doing multiple things simultaneously.
But even computers aren't really doing things at the exact same instant, are they?
No. They switch back and forth just incredibly fast, creating the illusion of doing things at the same time. It's task switching.
And the human brain has real limitations here. We can do two physical things at once, like walking and talking.
Sure, those use different parts of the brain. But we cannot focus our attention on two things simultaneously. Our attention literally bounces back and forth.
And that bouncing back and forth has serious repercussions. The book gives some chilling examples. Airliners cleared to land on the same runway.
Wrong medicine given to a patient, a toddler left unattended in the bathtub. These aren't just efficiency issues, they can be tragic consequences of divided attention.
And think about the modern office. It's a carnival of distracting multitasking demands, as the book calls it.
Totally. Research suggests workers get interrupted, every 11 minutes on average?
11 minutes. And then you spend time recovering from that interruption.
Right. Almost a third of the day recovering from distractions. It's exhausting just thinking about it. That Buddhist concept of monkey mind, our thoughts jumping around, it perfectly describes this constant temptation to do too much at once.
So what we think of as juggling multiple tasks is really just task switching.
Exactly. It's one ball at a time. You switch your focus rapidly, and this switching comes at a significant cost.
How so?
Research on task switching shows it dramatically increases the time needed to complete tasks. Sometimes it can double the time for complex work. It exacts a cost few realize they're even paying.
Because it feels like you're being productive, but you're actually slowing yourself down.
Precisely. Our brain processes different types of data in different channels. That's why walking and talking don't interfere. But focused attention, that happens in the prefrontal cortex. Trying to focus on two things actively divides that attention. Add a third task, and something almost certainly gets dropped or done poorly.
The driving example in the book is great. Trying to visualize rearranging furniture while driving.
Your visual cortex is engaged by the mental task, and you might become effectively blind to the car braking right in front of you. You simply cannot effectively focus on two important things at the exact same time.
The consequences are more dire than just being inefficient then.
Much more. Multitasking actually reduces our brain's capability in the moment. It increases the number of loose ends because we're less likely to return to the original task efficiently. And it causes significant time loss just from the brain reorienting itself. Some researchers estimate we lose like 28% of an average workday due to multitasking ineffectiveness.
28%, that's huge. And it's not just about work efficiency. It can have fatal consequences.
Absolutely. The book mentions Matt Richtel's Pulitzer-winning series on distracted driving. It's responsible for a significant percentage of all traffic fatalities.
And even just being on the phone while driving, hands-free even.
Takes a massive bite out of your focus. Research suggests it's comparable to driving drunk.
That's sobering. If we expect absolute concentration from pilots and surgeons, why do we tolerate anything less in our own important work? Or even in our personal lives?
That's a great question. And it impacts our relationships, too. Dave Crenshaw is quoted, "When we give people segmented attention, piecemeal time, switching back and forth, we end up damaging relationships."
Like texting under the table during dinner. We've all seen it, maybe done it.
Right. That segmented attention undermines any real connection. It leaves the other person feeling unheard, unimportant.
Okay, so for you listening, trying to implement these lessons, what's the key takeaway on multitasking?
First, recognize that distraction is natural. Don't beat yourself up about it. Everyone gets distracted. The key is how you respond.
And second,
understand that multitasking truly takes a toll. At home, at work, these constant distractions lead to poor choices, painful mistakes, and just unnecessary stress.
And
Ultimately, distraction undermines results. When you try to do too much at once, you risk doing nothing well. So the big idea here is figure out what matters most in any given moment and give that one thing your undivided, singular attention. That's how you reclaim your focus and start driving extraordinary results.
All right, let's move on to lie 3, a disciplined life. This is another really pervasive idea, isn't it? That successful people lead these incredibly disciplined lives, requiring constant ironclad control over every single action. It sounds exhausting.
It does sound exhausting, and it makes success seem almost out of reach, like you have to be some kind of superhero. But the truth, according to the book, is we don't actually need more discipline than we already possess.
Really? We just need to use it better.
Exactly. We simply need to direct and manage it a little better. Success isn't a marathon of disciplined action. It's more like a short race, a sprint fueled by discipline just long enough for habit to kick in and take over.
Okay, I like that. A sprint, not a marathon. So you don't need to be perfectly disciplined all the time.
No. Just disciplined enough for long enough to build the right habits.
So this is where the connection between discipline and habit comes in.
Precisely. Discipline is about training yourself consciously to act in a specific way. If you sustain that discipline consistently over time, it becomes routine. It becomes a habit.
So when we look at people who seem incredibly disciplined, what we're often seeing are people who have just successfully trained a handful of really powerful habits into their lives.
Exactly. They seem disciplined because those habits operate almost on autopilot now. They don't require constant draining willpower anymore.
That's a really liberating thought, actually. It means you don't need to be a perfectly disciplined person across the board to be successful.
That's totally liberating. Success is truly about doing the right thing, not about doing everything right. It takes immense pressure off. You don't have to feel like you need to be superhuman.
The Michael Phelps example you mentioned earlier fits perfectly here. Diagnosed with ADHD, told he'd never be able to focus on anything.
Yet, with his coach's help, he channeled his discipline intensely into one thing: swimming, and became the most decorated Olympian in history. His coach now calls his ability to focus his strongest attribute. His success came from focusing his available discipline where it mattered most and letting it compound over time through habit.
So the payoff from developing the right habits is obviously the success you're aiming for. But the book mentions an amazing windfall, too.
Yeah, it also simplifies your life. When you know precisely what you must do well, your one thing habit, you also know what you don't need to be perfectly disciplined about.
So you can be less disciplined in other areas. Kind of like purposeful chaos.
Exactly. Aiming discipline at the right habit frees you up. It clarifies your focus.
This raises a really important practical question for all of us listening. How long does it actually take to form a new habit? Because you hear all sorts of numbers thrown around.
Right. The popular myth is often 21 days. But research from the University College of London in 2009 found something different.
What did they find?
Their studies showed that it takes an average of 66 days to acquire a new habit. 66.
Wow, that's over 2 months, not 3 weeks.
Exactly. And there was a big range, too, from 18 days up to 254 days, depending on the person and the habit.
So the message there is patience and persistence. Don't give up after 21 days if it hasn't stuck yet.
Absolutely. Consistency over a couple of months, on average, makes all the difference. You have to give it time to become automatic.
And there's another interesting discovery mentioned, this halo effect around habit creation.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Australian researchers found that successfully acquiring one positive habit, like, say, exercising regularly, led to this cascade of other positive changes seemingly automatically. Things like less stress, less impulsive spending, better diet, decreased alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine use, even less TV, and fewer dirty dishes.
Seriously, fewer dirty dishes. How does that work?
Who knows exactly, but it demonstrates the compounding power of focusing on building just one right habit. It can ripple through your entire life in unexpected, positive ways.
Okay, so pulling this together for someone thinking about a disciplined life, what's the more empowering truth for them to take away?
First, don't strive to be a perfectly disciplined person across the board. It's unrealistic and unnecessary. Instead, focus on becoming a person of powerful habits, using selected discipline strategically to develop them.
Selected discipline. I like that. What's second?
Second, build one habit at a time. Remember, success is sequential. No one genuinely has the discipline to establish more than one powerful new habit simultaneously. Super successful people aren't superhuman. They've simply used selected discipline to install a few significant habits one at a time over time.
And third?
Third, give each habit enough time. Stick with the discipline long enough for it to become routine. That average is 66 days, so aim for at least that long. Once a habit is solidly established, then you can decide whether to build on it or maybe move on to building another crucial one.
All right, let's tackle lie 4. Willpower is always on will call. This feels like a particularly insidious lie because, well, most of us unwittingly set ourselves up for failure by assuming our willpower is just this endless, on-demand resource.
It really is insidious. That old proverb, where there's a will, there's a way, gets misinterpreted, doesn't it? The book argues it's more about timing your willpower correctly, not just assuming you have infinite determination.
The author shares his own experience with this, right? A kind of humbling discovery.
Yeah, he realized his willpower didn't always have it, that it seemed to come and go. It shattered his assumption that willpower would just always be there when he needed it, proving, as he puts it, that willpower isn't on will call.
It's a finite resource, not infinite.
Exactly. And this is profoundly illustrated by Walter Mischel's famous marshmallow test back in the 60s and 70s at Stanford.
Ah, yes, the kids and the marshmallows.
Right. 4-year-olds were offered one treat immediately or two if they could just wait 15 minutes. And most kids, well, they couldn't wait long.
How long do they typically last?
Less than 3 minutes, on average. It clearly showed that willpower was in pretty short supply, even at that young age.
But the really compelling part of that study is the long-term follow-up, isn't it?
That's the truly stunning part. They tracked these children for decades. And the kids who were high delayers, the ones who successfully waited for the second marshmallow, had significantly better outcomes later in life.
Better outcomes how?
Higher academic achievement, substantially higher SAT scores, greater self-worth, better stress management. The list goes on.
And the low delayers, the ones who grabbed the first marshmallow.
They faced higher rates of obesity, drug addiction, and other issues. It powerfully demonstrates the predictive power of delayed gratification and essentially willpower.
So what does this tell us about willpower itself? How does it actually work?
The authors use a great analogy. Think of willpower like your cell phone battery.
Okay.
It starts full in the morning, assuming you've rested. It drains throughout the day as you use it making decisions, resisting temptations, focusing. And then it recharges with downtime, with rest.
So it's limited but renewable.
Exactly. Limited but renewable. And critically, using it heavily in one situation, say, forcing yourself through a tough meeting, makes you more likely to lose later when faced with another challenge because you've depleted the battery.
There was other research at Stanford mentioned too, right? About cognitive load.
Yeah, Baba Shiv's research. Students had to memorize either a 2-digit or a 7-digit number. Those trying to hold the longer 7-digit number in their head a higher cognitive load.
Were much more likely to choose chocolate cake over fruit salad when offered a snack afterwards.
Nearly twice as likely. That small extra cognitive demand was enough to significantly deplete their willpower for making a prudent, healthy choice just moments later.
So willpower is like a fast twitch muscle. Powerful, but it fatigues quickly.
That's a great way to put it. Powerful for short bursts, but it lacks endurance.
And this connects to, literally, food. Food for thought.
Literally. Our brain, despite being only about 1/50th of our body mass, consumes a massive 1/5 of our daily calories. It's an energy hog.
And the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for focus, impulse control, willpower, it's kind of the last to get energy.
It's last in, first out, as the book says, meaning it's the first part of the brain to suffer when our energy resources, our glucose levels, run low.
This explains why nutrition is so important for focus and discipline.
Absolutely. Studies have shown that tasks requiring willpower actually lower blood sugar levels. And participants who were given a sugary drink, real sugar, not placebo, between willpower tasks performed significantly better on the second task.
So we literally need to feed our minds to maintain willpower.
Yes. Good quality fuel complex carbs, proteins, help sustain that energy and willpower throughout the day. Your brain needs fuel to stay sharp and disciplined.
The impact of depleted willpower goes even further, doesn't it? Affecting big decisions.
Yeah, the study on parole judges is quite striking. Judges were found to make harsher default choices, like denying parole much more often later in the day or just before a break. Decision fatigue. Their willpower was depleted from making numerous judgments, so they reverted to the easier, safer default option.
And that connects directly to our own lives, right? When our willpower wanes.
We revert to our default settings, choosing the chips over the carrots, scrolling social media instead of focusing on that important project, snapping at a family member.
Okay, so the key takeaway here is to give willpower the time of day it deserves. Respect it, manage it.
Exactly. Make doing what matters most a priority when your willpower is its highest.
Which usually means
Early in the day for most people. Tackle your one thing first, because your self-control will be sapped throughout the day as decisions, interruptions, and temptations inevitably mount. Use your prime energy on your prime task.
So to really implement this understanding of willpower, first, don't spread your willpower too thin. It's limited. Reserve it for what truly matters most.
Right. Be strategic. Second, monitor your fuel gauge. Full-strength willpower requires a full tank. Eat right, eat regularly, stay hydrated, keep your brain fueled.
And third, crucially, time your task. Do what matters most first each day when your willpower is strongest. Max strength willpower equals max potential for success on that task. Okay, let's dive into Life 5, a balanced life. This is such a deeply ingrained concept in our culture, this ideal of achieving perfect work-life balance. But the authors state pretty unequivocally that a balanced life in that static sense, well, it doesn't really exist.
It doesn't, and it's a potentially harmful myth. Balance, as an ideal state you reach and just stay in, is an illusion. The book argues that balance is really a continuous act of balancing. It's a verb, not a noun. It's something you do, constantly adjusting, not a state you achieve.
And chasing that perfect static balance might actually work against achieving big things.
That's the compelling argument. The true goals of life, things like purpose, meaning, significance, these inherently require you to live out of balance, at least temporarily. You have to prioritize one thing over others to make meaningful progress.
The act of living a full life, giving real time to what truly matters, is inherently a balancing act, a constantly shifting one.
Exactly. Extraordinary results demand focused attention and significant time. And time spent intensely on one thing inevitably means time away from another thing. This makes balance as some kind of perfectly even, static state impossible if you want to achieve anything significant.
It's interesting looking at the history of this concept. For most of human history, work was life, right? Survival was the focus.
Pretty much. You hunted, you farmed, you crafted just to get by. Then industrialization brought long, often brutal work hours, which led to movements for worker protection.
But the actual term work-life balance is much more recent.
Yeah, it wasn't even coined until the mid-1980s. Primarily, the book suggests when more women enter the workforce in large numbers, creating that new dynamic of potentially two breadwinners and maybe no dedicated homemaker.
And the rise of technology, smartphones, email just blurred the lines completely, making work feel inescapable.
Absolutely. It exacerbated this perceived need for balance because work could suddenly invade every space and every moment.
The book introduces this idea of middle mismanagement. What's that about?
It's the idea that if you're constantly aiming for the middle, for perfect, even balance across everything, you prevent yourself from ever making those extraordinary time commitments necessary for any significant achievement.
So, in trying to give equal attention to everything,
Everything gets shortchanged and nothing gets its due. The real magic happens at the extremes, the book argues, not in that safe, comfortable, perfectly balanced middle. You have to be willing to lean heavily into one thing for a period to make real breakthroughs.
But that presents a clear dilemma, doesn't it? If you focus intensely on work for too long, your personal life can really suffer. You hear people say, I have no life.
It's a very real challenge, and the cost of postponing your personal life can be truly poignant, sometimes irreversible. The book shares some sad anecdotes.
Like the teacher who died just before retirement, leaving behind all those unfulfilled plans and projects.
Yeah, or the businessman who assumed he could just get back the lost time with his family later in life, only to find those moments were gone forever.
You can't get back a child's bedtime story or a missed birthday. That hits hard. When you gamble with your time, you may be placing a bet you simply can't cover.
It's a powerful warning. So how do you navigate this? The book introduces two distinct types of counterbalancing.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's the work bucket. Professional success inherently requires taking your one thing to the extremes. This means dedicating a disproportionate amount of time and focus to it, accepting that other less critical work issues will have to wait or be addressed less frequently. It's about going long with your professional priorities, sprinting intensely in one direction for a while.
And the second bucket?
That's the personal life bucket. This, the book argues, demands tight counterbalancing. You simply cannot neglect your spirit, your body, your family, your friends, or your essential personal needs for long periods without serious negative consequences.
So here you move back and forth more quickly.
Yes, much more quickly. Or you find ways to combine activities. It's about going short in your personal life, actively avoiding long periods of being drastically out of balance in those crucial areas. Frequent, smaller adjustments.
There's that James Patterson analogy from one of his books, Suzanne's Diary for Nicholas.
Oh yeah, the juggling balls analogy. It's incredibly vivid.
Remind us.
Imagine life as a game in which you are juggling 5 balls. The balls are called work, family, health, friends, and integrity. But one day, you finally come to understand that work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it will bounce back.
But the other 4?
The other 4 balls, family, health, friends, integrity, are made of glass. If you drop one of these, it will be irrevocably scuffed, nicked, perhaps even shattered.
Wow, that clarifies priorities instantly. It shows what you truly can and cannot afford to drop, even temporarily.
It really does. So ultimately, the book reframes the whole discussion. The question of balance is really a question of priority.
When you act on your priority, your one thing, you automatically go out of balance. You have to.
Right. The real challenge isn't whether to go out of balance, but how long you stay on that priority before counterbalancing. The goal is to be crystal clear about your work priorities, to get them done efficiently, and then be equally clear about your home and personal priorities.
When you're supposed to be work, and when you're supposed to be play. Be fully present in whichever domain you're in.
Exactly. Don't let them bleed into each other constantly.
Okay, so for implementing this, thinking about a balanced life. First, think about 2 balancing buckets. Consciously separate your work life and personal life for these counterbalancing strategies.
Good starting point. Second, counterbalance your work bucket by giving disproportionate time and focus to your one thing. Accept that other, less critical work will be out of balance temporarily. Professional success genuinely requires this kind of intense, focused effort.
And third, for the personal side.
Counterbalance your personal life bucket much more tightly. Maintain constant awareness of all those crucial personal areas: spirit, body, family, friends, your own needs. Never neglect them for too long. Your personal well-being requires this tighter, more frequent rebalancing.
And now, we arrive at what might be the most damaging lie of all. Lie 6. Big is bad.
Yeah, this one can really hold people back without them even realizing it. The authors call it megaphobia, this irrational fear of big.
Fear of big. How does that manifest?
It leads to shrinking your thinking, actively avoiding or even unconsciously sabotaging efforts that could lead to big success. We often associate big with things like hard, complicated, crushing pressure, maybe even loss of health or relationships.
So we play it safe, think small to avoid those perceived downsides.
Exactly. But here's the liberating truth the book offers. No one knows their ultimate ceiling for achievement. No one. So worrying about hitting some imaginary limit is just a waste of precious time and energy.
History is full of examples where humans were flat wrong about their limits, right? Thinking the Earth was flat, that humans couldn't fly the 4-minute mile.
Precisely. So instead of fearing big, we should reframe it. See big as a placeholder for what you might call a leap of possibility.
A leap of possibility, I like that.
It's about pursuing bold ideas that might push your comfort zone, yes, but that also reveal your greatest opportunities. Believing in big frees you to ask different questions, try new things, and ultimately unlock inner possibilities you never even knew you had.
The story of Sabir Bhatia, the founder of Hotmail, is a great illustration of this.
It really is. He arrived in America with, what, $250?
Just $250.
Right.
But he held this gargantuan size of his dream to grow a business faster than any in history.
And Hotmail was eventually sold to Microsoft for $400 million. The book directly attributes that outcome to his ability, his willingness to think incredibly big right from the very beginning.
Because that initial thinking sets the trajectory.
Critically so. Your thinking informs your actions, and your actions determine your outcomes. Therefore, how big you dare to think becomes the launching pad for how high you can ultimately achieve.
The challenge, though, is that the very things, the what, how, and who, that get you to one level of success can sometimes create an artificial ceiling, preventing you from reaching the next level.
That's a key insight. You can get trapped by your past success formula. The solution the book proposes: think as big as you possibly can right from the outset. Aim high from the start. This prevents you from unintentionally boxing yourself in later on.
We see this kind of bold, early thinking in other historical examples, too. Arthur Guinness.
Signing a 9,000-year lease for his brewery. Talk about long-term vision.
Or J.K. Rowling, envisioning all 7 Harry Potter books before she even finished writing the first one.
And Sam Walton, setting up his sophisticated estate plan before opening the first Walmart, which ended up saving his heirs billions in taxes down the line. They dared to think big and think strategically right from the start.
And this power of thinking big isn't just confined to business or making money, right?
Not at all. Think about the social impact. Candace Lightner, founding Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MADD, that organization is credited with saving hundreds of thousands of lives. One person's big, bold idea in response to personal tragedy.
Or Ryan Hurljack, the 6-year-old Canadian boy whose desire to build a well in Africa grew into the Ryan's Well Foundation.
Which has now brought clean water to hundreds of thousands of people. Amazing.
And Derek Kayongo's global soap project, recycling hotel soap.
Distributing over 250,000 bars, significantly combating child mortality in developing countries. These are all powerful examples of individuals thinking big to create absolutely monumental social impact. The power of big thinking extends far beyond the boardroom.
It's also important to realize the book emphasizes that big goals might seem incredibly daunting at the start.
Oh, definitely. They can feel overwhelming. But the key insight is, on the journey to achieving big, you get bigger. Your thinking expands. Your skills develop. Your relationships deepen and broaden. Your whole sense of what's possible grows as you tackle challenges. As you experience big, you become big. The process changes you.
This ties into Carol Dweck's research at Stanford on the growth mindset, doesn't it?
Perfectly. Individuals with a growth mindset believe their abilities can be developed. They think big, actively seek growth, employ better strategies when faced with setbacks, and ultimately achieve more.
Whereas a fixed mindset assumes abilities are innate, places artificial limits, avoids challenges, and fears failure.
Right. But the really good news from Dweck's research is that mindsets aren't fixed. They can be changed, cultivated, like any habit. You can consciously choose to adopt a growth mindset.
Scott Forstall at Apple, when he was recruiting for the super secret iPhone project, he specifically looked for this, right?
Yes. He sought out growth-minded people who were willing to make mistakes and struggle in pursuit of doing something truly revolutionary, something they would remember the rest of our lives. He knew that to achieve something that big, he needed people who weren't afraid to think and grow big, even especially in the face of immense challenge and uncertainty.
Okay, so if you, listening now, want to integrate this and overcome the big is bad lie, what are the core actions?
First, consciously think big. Actively fight against incremental thinking. If your target is 10, ask yourself, how could I reach 20? Set a goal so far above what you initially want that it stretches your thinking and practically guarantees you hit your original goal, maybe even surpass it. Second, don't just order from the menu. Don't limit yourself to existing options or standard solutions. Like the icons in Apple's Think Different campaign, dare to imagine outcomes no one else has considered. Create your own possibilities.
Third, you need to act bold. Big thoughts by themselves aren't enough. They require equally bold action. Visualize the big outcome you want, then meticulously study the models, the systems, the habits, and the key relationships of those who've already achieved something similar. What consistently works for others at that level will almost always work for you too, if you apply it.
And finally, crucially, don't fear failure. It's not the opposite of success. It's often a necessary part of the journey to extraordinary results. Adopt that growth mindset and recognize that often we fail our way to success. Learn from mistakes, adjust, grow, and keep striving for your true big potential.
We've spent a good amount of time now debunking those 6 lies that hold so many people back. So now let's shift focus. Let's talk about the simple, powerful truth that actually unlocks extraordinary results. And this path, it seems, often starts with a deeply personal journey, which the author describes as getting unclenched.
Yes, he shares a very relatable, very honest transformation. For years, he admits, he was completely trapped by those lies of success we just discussed. Overthinking everything, overplanning, constantly pushing too hard.
He felt he had to clench his way to achievement.
Exactly. Constantly tense, forcing himself to talk like a success, walk like a success. He even talks about locking latecomers out of early morning meetings. Intense.
It worked?
It worked, in a sense.
Yeah.
He achieved conventional success. But it came at a huge cost. Physical illness, burnout. He reached a point where he was just sick of success, achieved that way.
So what did he do? He made a radical shift.
A completely radical shift in the opposite direction. He consciously ditched the lies. He got unclenched. He slowed down, started wearing casual clothes, made time for breakfast with his family, focused on getting physically and spiritually in shape.
And most
importantly, he started doing less, but doing it intentionally and purposefully, focusing his energy.
And the outcome of doing less.
The outcome was remarkable, almost paradoxical. I became more successful than I ever dreamed possible, he writes, and felt better than I'd ever felt in my life.
Wow. Doing less led to more success and feeling better.
Exactly. His key realization from this was profound. We usually succeed in spite of most of what we do, not because of it. We pile on so much unnecessary stuff.
So the true secret isn't about hustle and grind, necessarily.
Not in the way we usually think of it. The true secret, he suggests, is being appropriate in the moments of your life. Finding that state where you can genuinely say, this is where I'm meant to be right now, doing exactly what I'm doing, When you find that alignment, amazing possibilities begin to open up.
This brings us right to the core tool of the one thing philosophy, the focusing question. This is the precision instrument for getting that clarity, for finding that one right thing in any situation.
It really is the engine of the whole system, and it echoes wisdom from giants like Andrew Carnegie and Mark Twain. Carnegie advised intense concentration. Concentrate your energy, thought, and capital exclusively upon the business in which you are engaged.
And Twain talked about breaking complex tasks down into small, manageable ones, and then starting on the first one. Both referred to this kind of singular focus as a secret to their success.
Right. And the authors add a critical layer to that famous Chinese proverb: a journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step.
What's the layer?
While it's true you need a first step, the wrong first step can take you 2,000 miles away from your actual goal. You can step confidently in the completely wrong direction.
Okay. So the focusing question is designed precisely to prevent that misstep, to make sure your first step is the right first step.
Exactly. It ensures your effort is leveraged correctly from the very start.
Now, some people might ask, why focus on a question? What we really want is the answer.
That's a natural reaction. But the fundamental truth is, answers come from questions, and the quality of any answer you get is directly determined by the quality of the question you ask.
Voltaire said, judge a man by his questions rather than his answers.
And Sir Francis Bacon believed, a prudent question is one half of wisdom. Indira Gandhi called the power to question the basis of all human progress. It's fundamental.
There's even research showing that simply asking more questions improves learning and performance significantly, right?
By up to 150% in some studies. Asking questions literally makes you smarter and more effective.
The author mentions a poem, My Wage, by J.B. Rittenhouse, that really influenced him. The line, any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid.
Yeah, that's a powerful realization. It suggests that life is a question, and how we live it is our answer. The way we frame the questions we ask ourselves about our goals, our possibilities, our actions ultimately determines the answers that shape our entire life.
So the focusing question isn't just a productivity hack. It's a way to frame your life.
It's presented as the simple formula for finding exceptional answers that lead to extraordinary results in a world that doesn't give us clear instructions. It's deceptively simple, which paradoxically makes its power easy to dismiss, but that would be a huge mistake.
And it's a double-duty question. What does that mean?
It means it works on two levels simultaneously. It helps you answer the big picture questions, your overall vision, your ultimate direction in life or career. And it also helps you answer the small focus questions, what specific action you need to take right now.
So it's both a map for the big picture and a compass for your smallest next move.
Perfectly put. It helps you line up all your tasks, all your potential actions in their most highly levered order of importance. It connects the grand vision to the immediate step.
Okay, let's break down the question itself. What's the one thing I can do, such that, by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Each part is deliberate, right?
Absolutely. Let's dissect it. The first part, what's the one thing I can do?
One thing, singular.
Crucial. It immediately sparks focused action and limits the answer to one specific thing. No hedging your bets, no listing 5 priorities, just one. And the can-do part is also important. It directs you toward action that is actually possible for you, something within your control.
Okay, makes sense. The second part, such that by doing it.
This is the bridge, the criterion. It explicitly connects the action, the one thing, to a specific desired purpose or outcome. It forces you to think beyond just doing something random and consider the consequence of that action. It sets up a causal chain. Doing this specific thing will lead to that specific result.
Got it. And the third, and maybe most powerful part, everything else will be easier or unnecessary.
This is the ultimate leverage test. This is the magic qualifier. It's like Archimedes saying, give me a lever long enough and a place to stand and I will move the world.
How does it provide leverage?
This part forces you to identify the first domino. The single action that, once completed, will either make all the other necessary steps significantly easier or, even more powerfully, might render many of them completely unnecessary.
Wow, so it helps you find the action that clears the path most effectively.
Exactly. It declutters your life and your to-do list by helping you ruthlessly identify and focus on the highest leverage activity, pushing aside the distractions.
The goal, then, is to make asking this focusing question a genuine habit, a way of life.
That's the aim. The author mentions using it consistently when he wakes up, when he gets to work, when he gets home, especially in situations where the outcome absolutely matters. It's how he continually lines up his dominoes, ensuring his actions are always highly levered and aligned with his goals. You don't have to obsessively analyze every tiny decision, but start applying it to the big stuff, the important areas.
And the beauty of it is its versatility, right? You
Yeah.
can apply it to literally any area of your life just by reframing it slightly.
Absolutely. You just tailor it to the specific area and the desired time frame right now, this week, this year, someday.
Okay, let's run through some examples to give listeners ideas for your spiritual life.
You might ask, what's the one thing I can do this week to help others such that by doing it, everything else related to my spiritual growth will be easier or unnecessary? Or to improve my relationship with God?
For physical health, what's the one thing I can do today to ensure that I exercise such that by doing it, managing my diet and stress will be easier or unnecessary?
Exactly. Or to achieve my diet goals. Or to relieve my stress.
In your personal life, maybe skills or self-care, what's the one thing I can do this month to improve my skill at, say, public speaking, such that by doing it, getting new opportunities will be easier or unnecessary?
Or even something immediate. What's the one thing I can do right now to find time for myself, such that by doing it, I'll feel more recharged and focused later?
Key relationships. What's the one thing I could do this week to improve my relationship with my spouse partner, such that by doing it, our communication and connection become easier or unnecessary elsewhere?
Or for family. To improve my children's school performance, or to show my appreciation to my parents, or simply to make my family stronger this year.
On the job, what if the one thing I can do today to ensure that I hit my main project goal, such that by doing it, all the secondary tasks become easier or unnecessary?
Or longer term. To improve my skills, to help my team succeed, to further my career in the next 5 years.
For running a business, what's the one thing I can do this quarter to make our product the best, so that by doing it, sales and marketing become easier or unnecessary?
Yeah, or to make us more competitive, to make us more profitable, to improve our customer experience. Always looking for that lead domino.
And even finances. What's the one thing I can do this month to increase my net worth, such that by doing it, managing cash flow becomes easier or unnecessary?
Or to improve my investment cash flow. Or, the big one for many, to eliminate my credit card debt in the next 90 days.
Okay, those examples really show how broadly applicable it is. But how do you make asking this question a real daily routine? What are the practical strategies?
Good question. The authors offer 3 key steps for you. First, understand and believe it. You have to really grasp the concept intellectually and then genuinely believe in its potential power for you. See the logic.
Makes sense. You won't stick with it if you don't believe in it.
Exactly. Second, leverage reminders. This is crucial for building the habit. Put up physical signs near your workspace like, until my one thing is done, everything else is a distraction. Use sticky notes, screensavers, recurring calendar cues. Keep that connection between the question and your desired results constantly front and center.
So keep it visible. And third,
recruit support. This is powerful. Research consistently shows that the people around you influence you tremendously, for better or worse. So talk to your colleagues, maybe form a small success support group, get your family involved, share your one thing with them.
and maybe even show them how the focusing question could help their lives too.
Exactly. It creates this environment of shared focus, mutual encouragement, and accountability, which can be incredibly motivating and help everyone stay on track. These strategies help you move beyond just knowing about the focusing question to truly living it day to day.
Transforming it from an idea into a powerful success habit that genuinely produces those extraordinary results. Now, asking a great question is the crucial first step, as we've just discussed, but then you need to find a truly great answer, the answer that will actually make all the difference. Let's talk about the path to great answers, goal setting to the now.
Right, because a great question deserves a great answer. And a great answer, like a great goal, the book argues, needs to be both big and specific.
Big and specific. Why both?
Well, big pushes you. It stretches you beyond your comfort zone. It aims you at something significant. But specific gives you clarity, a measurable outcome, leaving no room for ambiguity about whether you've achieved it or not. The book uses a helpful matrix to visualize this.
Okay, let's use their example of increasing sales to illustrate. If you just ask, what can I do to increase sales by 5% this year? What quadrant is that?
That's small and specific. It's incremental, maybe even achievable just by market shifts alone. It's not very challenging, not very inspiring.
What about just what can I do to increase sales?
That's small and broad. It's okay for initial brainstorming, maybe, but it's far too vague to be actionable. Increase sales by when? By how much?
Then there's big and broad. What can I do to double sales? Getting warmer.
Getting warmer. It's a big goal, which is good, but it still lacks specifics. Doubling sales over 20 years is vastly different from doubling them in 6 months. Still too many options, not focused enough.
So the sweet spot, the great question, is big and specific. What can I do to double sales in 6 months?
That is a great question. It's a big, challenging goal, double sales, tied to a specific, demanding time frame in 6 months. You know you'll need a big answer for that. It forces you to stretch your beliefs, look outside your standard solutions.
And then when you convert that into the focusing question,
Yeah.
what's the one thing I can do right now to double sales in 6 months, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary?
Boom! Now you're going straight to the heart of success. You're forced to identify what absolutely matters most, the very first domino you need to topple to start that chain reaction toward your big, specific goal.
Okay, so you've asked a great question. Now, how do you find a great answer? The book talks about different categories of answers.
Yes, 3 main categories. 1, doable. These are answers that are already within your current knowledge and skill set. You pretty much know how to do it, won't need to change much. Comfortable, but maybe not extraordinary.
Okay.
2, stretch. These answers push you right to the edge of your current abilities. They'll likely require some research, maybe studying what others have done. It might feel a bit iffy, definitely pushing your limits.
Getting better.
3, possibility. This is where the book says highly successful people aim. These answers lie beyond your current natural grasp. They require genuine breakthroughs in thinking or approach. They exist outside what's already known and being done, and pursuing them will fundamentally transform you and your results.
So if you're aiming for extraordinary, you're looking for possibility answers. But what if you don't know the possibility answer? What if it's not obvious?
Great point. In that situation, your one thing becomes finding the answer. Your immediate priority is the search itself.
And how do you search effectively?
The book emphasizes benchmarking and trending. You need to actively research and find role models, people, or organizations who have already studied or accomplished something similar to your big, specific goal.
So learn from others. Don't reinvent the wheel unnecessarily.
Absolutely. The author talks about his own large library of books and how crucial the internet is for this. As one of his professors wisely told him, "Gary, you're smart, but people have lived before you. You'd be wise to study what others have learned first and then build your actions on the back of their lessons."
Okay, so you research. That helps you establish a benchmark.
Exactly. The benchmark is the current high water mark, the best that's currently known or being done in that area. For you, aiming for extraordinary, that benchmark becomes your absolute minimum standard.
And then you trend.
Then you trend. You look for the next thing, what's emerging, what's the next logical step in the same direction, or perhaps an entirely new disruptive approach. This is how big problems get solved and real breakthroughs happen. You build on the benchmark and then innovate beyond it.
And a crucial part of finding these possibility answers is being prepared for reinvention.
Yes, you have to embrace it. Finding an original possibility level answer often requires you to fundamentally reinvent aspects of yourself, adopting new behaviors, new ways of thinking, new skills, maybe even new relationships. Don't resist that growth. See it as an essential part of the journey to extraordinary.
Okay, this connects perfectly to the next idea. Goal setting to the now. Because having a big goal and a potential answer isn't enough if you don't connect it to your present actions.
Right. Purpose without priority is powerless, as the book says. We need that clear link. And remember, priority originally meant first, singular, just one. To achieve extraordinary results, your functional meaning of priority has to be your one thing.
And the only time we can actually act is.
Right. Now, W. That's our only reality. Our ability to achieve amazing things in the future depends entirely on stringing together powerful moments one after the other, starting now. What you do in this moment determines what's possible in the next.
But our brains sometimes work against us here, right? This present bias.
Yes, the book mentions the economic concept of hyperbolic discounting. It basically describes our strong, often irrational preference for smaller, immediate rewards over much larger future ones, even when the future reward is objectively way better.
Like choosing $10 today over $100 in a month.
Exactly. This present bias can completely devastate your future self. It overrides logic and causes you to consistently miss out on achieving your biggest, most important long-term goals because you prioritize immediate gratification.
So how does goal setting to the now save us from this bias?
It creates a direct, tangible link between your ultimate goal and your immediate action. The book uses the analogy of a Russian matryoshka doll.
The nesting dolls.
Exactly. Your one thing right now is nested inside your one thing today, which is nested inside this week, which is inside this month, this year, 5 years, and ultimately all nested within your big someday goal.
So it visually and conceptually connects the smallest action to the biggest vision.
Precisely. It shows how small, focused actions performed consistently build into truly big accomplishments. You're literally lining up your dominoes, connecting your grandest vision all the way down to your next crucial step.
To really internalize this, the author suggests actually reading the full nested question sequence out loud.
Yes, it's a powerful exercise, starting with your big vision. Based on my someday goal, what's the one thing I can do in the next 5 years to be on track to achieve it?
And then,
Based on my 5-year goal, what's the one thing I can do this year? And then based on the year goal, what's the one thing this month? Then this week, then today, all the way down to the killer question. Based on my one thing for today, what's the one thing I can do right now such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary?
that process really trains your mind to make the connection, doesn't it? It forces you to identify the absolute key priority you need to tackle right now to stay on track for your biggest goals.
It does. And it's not just about visualizing the outcome, the big goal. Research actually shows that students who visualize the process, like picturing all the study sessions needed to get an A, performed significantly better than those who only visualize the outcome, the A itself.
Why is visualizing the process better?
Because it engages your strategic thinking. It helps you anticipate obstacles and plan the actual steps needed. It helps overcome the natural planning fallacy, where we tend to be wildly optimistic about how quickly and easily we can accomplish things.
And the critical final step in this whole goal-setting process, the one thing that dramatically increases your chances of success.
Write it down. Put pen to paper. Research by Dr. Gail Matthews found that participants who wrote down their goals and sent regular progress reports to a friend were almost 77% more likely to achieve them.
77% more likely. That's nearly twice as effective.
It's huge. Writing down your goals makes them real, tangible. It gives them power beyond just a fleeting thought or intention.
Okay, so pulling together goal setting to the now for practical application. First, remember there can only be one most important priority at any given time. The one thing you can do right now to achieve what matters most.
Absolutely. Second, goal set to the now. Use that nested questioning technique to consciously connect your biggest future goals directly to your immediate present priorities. Make that link explicit.
And third, critically, put pen to paper. Write your goals down, your someday goal, your 5-year goal, maybe even your one thing for the week or day, and keep them visible, keep them close. This simple act significantly increases your odds of actually achieving them. Okay, we've covered finding your purpose and setting your priorities using the focusing question and goal setting to the now, but none of that matters without action. Now let's talk about live for productivity, mastering your time blocks. Because, as the book says, productive action transforms lives.
Exactly. And productive action isn't just about being busy or working long hours. It's about getting the absolute most out of what you do, especially when the outcome truly matters.
The book challenges us to rethink how we measure time management systems. It's not about the fancy planner or the app.
No, it's about the function, the results. If time is money, as the saying goes, then the best way to judge a time managing system might just be by the results or the money it helps you generate. Does it actually lead to achieving your goals?
And the most successful people, they aren't necessarily the ones with the most elaborate systems, but the most productive ones. Why?
Because they consistently devote maximum time to being productive on their top priority, their one thing. They don't just hope they'll get to it, they ensure it happens.
And how do they ensure it happens?
They time block their one thing and then protect their time blocks with a vengeance. This is the core strategy.
Time blocking. Explain that. What does it look like in practice?
Time blocking is described as productivity's greatest power tool. It's about harnessing your limited time and energy and centering it squarely on your most important work, proactively shielding it from distractions.
So practically, you go to your calendar.
Yes. You literally go to your calendar, digital or paper, doesn't matter, and you block off specific chunks of time dedicated only to working on your one thing.
Like scheduling an appointment with yourself.
Exactly like that, a non-negotiable appointment. If it's a regular activity like writing or strategic planning, you block off that time every single day, ideally, so it becomes a powerful habit.
And here's the crucial part the book emphasizes. During that blocked time.
Everything else, other projects, paperwork, email, calls, correspondence, meetings, and all the other stuff must wait. Period. This is how you create the most productive day possible, and you make it repeatable.
The book has those contrasting visuals, right?
Yeah.
The typical day where everything else dominates.
Yeah, where the important stuff gets squeezed into the margins, if it happens at all.
Contrasted with a productive day where your one thing gets the time of day it deserves, front and center.
It's a powerful visual shift. And during that dedicated time block, you apply the focusing question again, but for that specific session. Today, during this block, what's the one thing I can do for my overall one thing, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary?
So you ensure you're always working on the highest leverage activity within that protected time.
Precisely. It keeps you laser focused on making real progress.
And the book suggests that consistently doing this makes you invaluable.
Absolutely. People who consistently deliver on their most important contribution become known for it. They become the go-to person, potentially irreplaceable in their specific role or organization.
They work on event time, not clock time. What does that mean?
It means they focus on completing the task, achieving the objective of that time block, rather than just stopping because the clock hits a certain hour. Like a dairy farmer who doesn't quit until the cows are actually milked, they finish their one thing for that session, regardless of whether it takes a bit less or a bit more time than scheduled. Task completion over clock watching.
Okay, key advice for effective time blocking. Block early and block big.
Yes. Block time as early in your day as possible. Harness that peak willpower and mental clarity we talked about earlier.
And block big. How big are we talking?
The recommendation is a minimum of 4 hours a day dedicated to your one thing.
4 hours? That sounds like a lot.
It might sound like a lot, but think about it. That's the time needed for deep, focused work that produces extraordinary results. The book uses Stephen King as an example. He famously structures his mornings exclusively for writing, hitting his word count goal before doing anything else.
And the crucial question the book poses is, does he get to do this because he is Stephen King? Or is he Stephen King because he does this?
Exactly. The discipline likely came first and led to this success. There's another great anecdote about an executive assistant who dramatically increased her productivity and value simply by booking herself a conference room for a few hours each morning to do her focused project work, completely escaping the constant interruptions at her desk. She became a maker in the morning.
That connects to Paul Graham's essay on the maker schedule versus manager schedule.
Yes. Maker time for doing deep work, creating things, needs large, uninterrupted blocks. Manager time for overseeing, directing meetings tends to be fragmented into hour-long slots.
So the advice is?
Be a maker in the morning and a manager in the afternoon. Protect those large blocks early in the day for your most important creative or strategic work. Cluster your meetings, calls, and more administrative tasks later in the day whenever possible.
The book also outlines 3 specific time-blocking priorities, and the order matters.
Yes, the order is key for sustainability. 1. Time block your time off first. This might seem backward, but successful people often plan their vacations and downtime first. Why? Because they know they'll need the rejuvenation to sustain high performance, and they plan their work around it, knowing their focused work will allow them to afford it. It's about valuing recreation.
Okay, time off first. What's second?
2. Time block your one thing second. This is your most important daily appointment, the engine of your professional success. But you can't sustain that success long-term if you burn out, hence why time off comes first.
And third?
3. Time block your planning time thorough debow. This is essential for reflection and alignment. Schedule a block, maybe weekly, to review your goals, plan the upcoming week, ask the focusing question for your priorities, and basically line up your dominoes. You're literally time blocking time to time block and plan effectively.
There's that great little technique from Jerry Seinfeld mentioned too. Don't break the chain.
So simple, so powerful. For him, his one thing was writing jokes every day. He'd get a big wall calendar and put a big red X over each day he did his writing.
And the goal was just...
Your only job is to not break the chain. After a few days, you have a chain going and you like seeing it grow. Your only job next is to not break it. It creates this visual momentum and makes the habit much easier to maintain through consistency. Small, consistent actions compounding.
But just blocking the time isn't enough, is it? You have to actually protect that time block.
Absolutely critical. This might be the hardest part. The world doesn't know or necessarily respect your priorities. Interruptions will happen. So it's your job, your responsibility to protect that sacred time block with vigilance from others, and sometimes even from yourself.
What's the best way to protect it? Mindset.
Mindset is key. You have to adopt the mindset that these appointments with yourself are as immovable as, say, a meeting with your most important client or your CEO.
So how do you say no to interruptions?
The simplest way is often just to say, politely but firmly, I'm sorry, I already have an appointment at that time. You don't need to over-explain.
What about requests from important people, your boss, a key client?
For high-level important requests, you can try offering a future completion time. That sounds important. If I have that done for you by specific time later today or tomorrow, would that work? Often, that satisfies the need.
And if it's a true emergency, drop everything urgent.
Then the rule is, if you erase, you must replace. If you absolutely have to cancel or cut short your time block, you must immediately reschedule it on your calendar right then and there. Don't just let it disappear.
And protecting it from yourself, those internal distractions.
Personal resolve is huge. Put up that sign. Until my one thing is done, everything else is a distraction. Make it your mantra for that block. Keep a notepad handy to brain dump other tasks or ideas that pop into your head. Get them out of your mind and onto paper so you can stay focused, knowing you won't forget them.
And finally, the idea of building a bunker.
Yeah. Find a physical space where you can be truly distraction-free. Maybe it's just putting a do not disturb sign on your office door and closing the blinds. Maybe it's putting up a folding screen. Maybe it means going to a different room, a library, or even outside the office entirely, like authors Ernest Hemingway or Dan Heath did.
And proactively clear the path before you start.
Crucial. Eradicate all those common sight and sound thieves that tend to derail you before your time block even begins. Don't check email first thing. Don't scan the news headlines. Avoid the office coffee pot gossip. Clear the path to success, make it easy to start, and you will consistently get there.
Okay, so summarizing how to live for productivity. First, connect the dots. Consciously align where you ultimately want to go, your purpose, your big goals, with what you do today, driven by clear priorities derived from the focusing question.
Second, time block your one thing. Make those regular, non-negotiable appointments with yourself on your calendar. Block them early in the day, ideally for at least 4 hours if possible. Your calendar should visually reflect this deep commitment.
And third, maybe most importantly, protect your time block at all costs. From others, from yourself. Nothing and no one gets permission to distract you during that crucial time. Be firm, be resolute. Your time block is the single most important meeting of your day for achieving extraordinary results. Okay, achieving those extraordinary results through focused time blocking sounds great, but it doesn't just happen automatically by putting it on the calendar. The book emphasizes it requires 3 critical commitments that really underpin the whole process and set you apart.
That's right. These commitments are what make the system work sustainably. The first commitment is to follow the path of mastery.
Mastery. What does that mean in this context? It sounds daunting.
It's not about reaching some final destination called mastery. It's presented as a continuous journey, a way of thinking, a way of acting, and a journey you experience. The idea is that when you commit to truly mastering your chosen one thing, everything else related to it naturally becomes easier or even unnecessary.
So it's about constantly improving at your most important work.
Exactly. It's about giving the best you have to become the best you can be at your most important work. Think of martial arts. Even black belts consider themselves apprentices for what's still ahead. It's a lifelong pursuit.
The book mentions Alex Van Halen practicing guitar for hours.
Yeah, practicing relentlessly, nonstop, even when his brother Eddie was out partying. That's the kind of relentless dedication that mastery often requires. It's not always glamorous.
This ties into Kay Anders Ericsson's research on deliberate practice, right? The 10,000-hour rule.
It aligns perfectly. Ericsson found that elite performers, like top violinists, typically accumulated around 10,000 hours of highly focused, deliberate practice by age 20.
How does that translate to the workplace?
The book suggests that to stay on a mastery path in your career, you probably need to dedicate around 4 hours of focused work on your one thing each workday. That adds up to 1,000 hours a year, keeping you on pace over a decade.
The core message being, time on a task over time eventually beats talent every time.
That's the essence. Michelangelo famously said something like, "If people knew how hard I had to work to gain my mastery, it wouldn't seem wonderful at all." It's about the work, the consistent effort over time.
And the payoffs of pursuing mastery.
As you progress, your self-confidence and competence naturally grow. And mastering one thing often serves as a powerful platform, making it faster and easier to learn and master other related things. It's a pursuit that keeps giving back to you.
There's that story about Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo.
Beautiful story, asking to be buried in his white belt, symbolizing that learning is a lifelong journey, always beginning anew. That's the mastery mindset.
Okay, that's the first commitment, mastery. What's the second?
The second commitment is to move from E to P. That is, from an entrepreneurial approach to a purposeful approach.
E to P, explain that. What's the difference?
E, entrepreneurial, is our natural default approach. We rely on our initial enthusiasm, our raw energy, our natural talents and abilities, and that can take us quite far. But natural ability, by itself, eventually hits a ceiling of achievement.
You can only get so good or so far relying just on raw talent or initial methods.
Exactly. Highly productive, purposeful P people don't accept these limitations as final. When they hit a ceiling, instead of giving up or just trying harder with the same tools, they actively look for new models, new systems, better ways to do things to push them through that ceiling.
The book uses that great chainsaw analogy.
Yeah, it's perfect. An E person faced with a pile of wood grabs the axe they already have and starts chopping, relying on effort. A P person stops, thinks, and asks, "Where can I get a chainsaw?" They look for leverage, a better tool, a better method.
So the P mindset is about constantly seeking leverage and better ways, even if they feel unnatural at first.
Precisely. It allows you to achieve breakthroughs far beyond your initial natural abilities, but it requires a willingness to learn new things, to be uncomfortable, to do whatever it takes to find that better way.
This connects to the OK plateau concept.
Yes, from Joshua 4. It's that point where we become good enough at something like typing speed or driving, and we just stop actively trying to get better. We plateau at OK.
But for extraordinary results.
Accepting an OK plateau isn't okay. You have to consciously push past it. Moving from E to P means constantly challenging that plateau, always asking, is there a better way? What's the next model or system I need to learn?
Relying only on E can lead to a vicious cycle, right? Hitting ceilings, getting disappointed.
And then maybe starting over somewhere else, only to repeat the pattern, whereas the P approach, when faced with a ceiling, asks, what are my options? It uses the focusing question to find the next best model or system, even if it requires adopting new thinking, new skills, new relationships that might feel unnatural initially. It's about purposeful growth.
Okay, so mastery. Moving from E to P. What's the third critical commitment?
The third is to live the accountability cycle. This is huge.
Accountability. What does that really mean in practice?
Accountable people, as the book defines them, are intensely results-oriented. They own their actions and outcomes, they absorb setbacks, learn from them, and persevere. They never waste time defending actions or making excuses if something isn't getting the job done. They simply ask, what else can I do?
They bring their best to whatever it takes without reservation.
That's the mindset. And the book presents a stark choice here. When life happens, you can be either the author of your life or the victim of it.
Author or victim. That's a powerful framing.
It really is. And it's presented as an attitude, a choice you make, not an innate trait you're born with. But it can become a deeply ingrained habit over time.
The Tale of Two Managers illustrates this well.
Yeah, two competing managers facing the same tough market shift. The accountable manager digs in, investigates the reality, owns the problem, if it's to be, it's up to me, and actively seeks solutions, asking, what can we do?
While the other manager
Denies reality, blames external factors, points fingers, makes excuses. It's not my fault, it's not my job. One authors her destiny by taking responsibility. The other becomes a victim of circumstance.
So highly successful people actively seek reality, acknowledge it, and own it, even when it's uncomfortable.
Yes, because that's the only way to find genuinely new solutions and achieve better outcomes. You can't fix a problem you refuse to acknowledge or take responsibility for.
And one of the fastest ways to cultivate this accountability in your own life.
Find an accountability partner. This could be a mentor, a trusted peer, or ideally a coach.
And this partner isn't just a cheerleader?
No, definitely not. Their role is to provide frank, objective feedback, help you see reality clearly, and create an ongoing expectation for productive progress. They hold you to your commitments.
This loops back to the research showing that sharing goals and progress reports significantly boosts achievement rates.
Exactly. Dr. Gail Matthews' research, again, that 76.7% higher achievement rate for those who wrote goals and shared progress with friends. Accountability works. Erickson's research on elite performers also highlighted that they actively seek out teachers and coaches and engage in supervised training. It's a critical differentiator from amateurs. A coach can help with all three commitments: mastery, moving E to P, and accountability.
Okay, so recapping these three vital commitments for you listening. First, commit to be your best. Give your absolute best effort to becoming the best you can be at your most important work. That's the path to mastery, and it requires deep, sustained commitment.
Second, be purposeful about your one thing. Consciously move from E, entrepreneurial natural, to P, purposeful. Actively seek out the best models and systems that will take you farthest, even if it requires embracing new thinking, new skills, and new relationships. Challenge the OK plateau.
And third, live the accountability cycle. Choose to be the author of your life, not the victim. Own your actions and your outcomes. Seek reality, find solutions, and seriously consider finding an accountability partner or a coach to provide that objective feedback and support needed to stay on track and achieve those extraordinary results. So even if you've got your purpose clear, your priorities straight with the focus in question, and you're diligently time blocking and committed to mastery, E2P, and accountability, there are still forces actively working against you, trying to pull you off course.
That's right. The path isn't always smooth. The authors call these insidious forces the four thieves of productivity, the things that can literally steal your focus, your time, and derail your best efforts if you're not actively on guard against them.
The book starts this section with that really striking Good Samaritan experiment from back in 1973.
Oh, yeah, that one is powerful. Seminary students of all people are studied. They were on their way to give talks. Some were even assigned to talk about the Good Samaritan parable itself.
And on the way, they encountered a person seemingly in distress slumped in a doorway.
Exactly. But the researchers manipulated one variable: how much of a hurry the students thought they were in. Some were told they were late, others on time, others early.
And the result?
The only significant factor determining whether they stopped to help was how much of a hurry they felt they were in. Time pressure completely overrode their personal values or even the topic they were about to preach on.
Wow. That's a stark reminder of how easily our focus and even our core values can be lost when we feel rushed or pressured.
It really is. If seminary students can lose their way that easily, what hope do the rest of us have in our busy lives? It shows we need to be incredibly vigilant.
So we need to actively guard against these four specific thieves. What are they again?
1, inability to say no. 2, fear of chaos. 3, poor health habits. And 4, environment doesn't support your goals.
Okay, let's break down the first thief, inability to say no. This feels like a big one for many people pleasers out there.
Huge. As the book memorably puts it, one yes must be defended over time by 1,000 no's.
Oof, that's intense. Explain that.
Every time you say yes to something new, especially something that requires ongoing commitment, you're implicitly saying no to countless other things you could be doing with that time and energy, including your one thing. Saying yes to everything is effectively saying yes to nothing, because your focus gets diluted and your effectiveness plummets.
You simply can't please everyone. And if you try,
you'll definitely displease yourself, and you won't make significant progress on what matters most to you.
Steve Jobs was apparently a master of saying no.
A legendary no man. When he returned to Apple in '97, the company was drowning in products, something like 350 different things. He famously slashed that down to just 10.
Wow.
His reasoning was clear. Focusing is about saying no. He understood that true innovation and excellence required ruthless prioritization, which meant saying no to almost everything else. He said no for extraordinary results.
So how do we get better at saying no, respectfully but effectively?
The advice is to say no with respect, promptly, and perhaps with a lead to someone or something else that might be able to help. The key is being willing to bear the potential short-term pain of saying no, maybe disappointing someone slightly in the moment, for the much larger long-term gain of protecting your focus and achieving your goals.
The author even developed a personal strategy, the 3-foot rule.
Yeah, basically saying that if a request isn't directly connected to his current one thing, he won't let it get within 3 feet of him. He either says no directly or finds creative ways to deflect or handle it efficiently without sacrificing his core focus time.
Like using FAQs, written instructions, pre-scheduled group training instead of constant one-on-one interruptions.
Exactly. Leveraging your yeses strategically so they don't overwhelm your no. The ultimate choice the book presents is snark. If you can't say no a lot, you'll never truly be able to say yes to achieving your one thing.
Okay, thief, #1. Learn to say no. What's thief, #2?
Fear of chaos. This is a subtle but powerful one. When you focus intensely on your one thing, it guarantees that other things will get messy. Untidiness, disarray elsewhere, it's inevitable.
What?
Because the world doesn't just stop and wait politely while you focus. Emails pile up, other projects stall, maybe the house gets messier. Things will rack up and stack up while you bear down on your singular priority.
And the fear comes from that mounting pressure, the feeling of things getting out of control elsewhere.
Exactly. That fear, that pressure from unfinished work and loose ends is a major productivity thief. Giving into that pressure, jumping around trying to tidy everything up, provides temporary relief, but it completely undermines your focused effort. It's not okay when it comes to productivity.
So the advice is embrace the chaos.
Pretty much.
Right.
When you strive for greatness, chaos is guaranteed to show up. The book quotes filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola. Anything you build on a large scale or with intense passion invites chaos. You have to accept it as part of the process, not fight it constantly.
But what about things you genuinely can't ignore? Family emergencies, critical deadlines on other projects.
Of course, some things are unavoidable and important. The book encourages you to beg, barter, or be creative to manage these essential demands without completely sacrificing your power hours dedicated to your one thing. Find ways to handle them efficiently, delegate or schedule them outside your protected time block. Don't be a victim of your circumstances. Find solutions.
And trust that the success you achieve from nailing your one thing will eventually help you manage the chaos.
That's the long-term payoff. The success, the income, the opportunities generated by accomplishing your one thing will ultimately create the resources or flexibility needed to bring order to the other areas later on. Focus now, clean up later.
Okay. Thief #3 is poor health habits. This feels like a silent thief.
Definitely. The authors call personal energy mismanagement a silent thief of productivity. Sacrificing your health, pulling all-nighters, eating poorly, skipping exercise in the name of achieving success is just a horrific deal.
Why horrific?
Because it consistently short-circuits your best work. You can't focus effectively, your willpower plummets, your creativity suffers, you make more mistakes, and it's obviously dangerous for your long-term well-being. It's completely counterproductive.
So instead, a highly productive person needs a daily energy plan.
Yes, a conscious plan designed to fuel willpower and sustain focus throughout the day. The book outlines 5 key areas. 1, spiritually. Meditate, pray, reflect whatever centers you. 2, physically. Eat right, exercise regularly, stay hydrated, non-negotiable fuel. 3, mentally. Plan your day, perhaps the night before or first thing, to set your intentions. 4, at work. Handle urgent minor stuff quickly, then dive into your protected one thing time block. Take a real break around noon to recharge. 5, sleep. This is huge. Get enough sleep, ideally 8 hours. Protect this time fiercely.
The book is pretty strong on sleep, isn't it? Saying anyone who gets little sleep and seems fine is basically a freak of nature or hiding it.
Yeah, they don't mince words. High performance requires proper rest and recovery. The overall goal is to have an energized start to each day. If you nail the morning energy, the rest of the day often falls into place much more easily, creating positive momentum.
Okay, and the final thief? Thief #4. Environment doesn't support your goals.
This is about the external forces around you. Your environment, specifically who you see and what you experience every day, can either be a huge asset or a major thief of your productivity and focus.
Starting with who you see, the people you hang out with.
Absolutely. The influence of our social networks is profound. Research from Harvard and UC San Diego, highlighted in the book Connected, shows clear correlations between our social circles and things like drug use, sleep patterns, smoking, eating habits, even obesity.
Obesity, how does that work?
If a close friend becomes obese, your chances of becoming obese increase by something like 57%. The people around us unconsciously set standards and norms for what's acceptable or expected.
So the flip side is also true. Hanging out with high achievers pulls you up.
Studies show exactly that. Children who hang out with high-achieving students tend to get better grades and become more motivated. Hanging out with people who seek success will strengthen your motivation and positively push your performance. Choose your circle wisely.
And it's not just the people, but your physical surroundings too.
Yes. Your physical environment must actively support your goals. If it's full of distractions or temptations, it can prevent you from even starting on your one thing. Think about trying to diet while walking down the candy aisle. Your environment is working directly against your goal.
So you need to consciously design your environment for success.
Exactly. The advice is to do a trial run of your typical daily path, especially leading up to your time block, and proactively eradicate all the sight and sound thieves that usually pull you off track. Maybe it's the lure of checking email first thing, or the habit of reading the morning paper online, watching the TV news while getting ready, or getting sucked into conversations at the community coffee pot. Identify your specific thieves and eliminate them before they have a chance to strike. Clear the path to success.
Okay, let's summarize the defenses against these 4 thieves for everyone listening. First, learn to say no. To protect your one thing and your energy, get comfortable saying no, or at least no for now. This liberates crucial time and focus.
Second, accept chaos. Understand and embrace the fact that intensely pursuing your one thing will move other things to the back burner temporarily. Some messiness is unavoidable. Don't let the fear of it derail your focus.
Third, manage your energy fiercely. Don't sacrifice your health for productivity, it backfires. Prioritize proper nutrition, consistent exercise, and adequate sleep as fundamental pillars of high performance.
And fourth, take ownership of your environment. Ensure both your social circle and your physical surroundings actively support your goals, providing optimism, encouragement, and a clear, distraction-free path to getting your most important work done.
We've covered a lot of ground: the core principles, debunking the lies, the path to productivity, the commitments, the thieves. Now let's bring it all together and talk about the journey to extraordinary results and personal implementation. This feels like it's ultimately about something bigger than just getting more done. It's about living large and no regrets.
It really is. The journey starts, as always, with that one step at a time. But that single step, as we now know, needs to be your one thing, the right first step.
The book challenges us, you the listener, to do something powerful. Close your eyes and genuinely imagine your life as big as it can possibly be.
It's a profound exercise, and the underlying message is incredibly empowering. Whatever you can see, you have the capacity to move toward. Your vision sets the boundaries of your potential.
To make this less abstract, they suggest a concrete exercise for living large.
Yes, a very practical one. Take your current income, or maybe another metric relevant to an area you want to improve, say hours spent on a passion project or fitness level. Write down the current number.
Okay.
Now, multiply it by a big number, 2, 4, 10, maybe even 20. Get a number that feels genuinely big, maybe even a little scary.
Got it.
Then ask yourself the honest question. Will my current actions, my current trajectory, get me to this much bigger number in the next 5 years?
And if the answer is yes?
Keep doubling the number until the answer is definitively no. Until you hit a number that your current path absolutely won't reach.
Okay, then what?
Then your task is to figure out the actions, the one thing thinking that would get you to that bold answer. You have to make your actions match the size of your ambition. As the book says, when you lift the limits of your thinking, you expand the limits of your life. It starts with daring to envision more.
This all reinforces that crucial idea of sequential building, doesn't it? Big results aren't achieved overnight.
Not at all. Actions build on actions. Habits build on habits. Success builds on success. The right domino knocks down another, slightly bigger one, creating that powerful chain reaction we talked about. Extraordinary results don't allow you to magically skip to the end. They are meticulously built, sequentially, gaining knowledge, skills, and momentum daily. One focused step, one thing at a time. It's a compounding process fueled by focus.
And this journey, pursuing something big, it requires faith, doesn't it? Faith in the process, faith in yourself.
Absolutely. The book shares that wonderful Cherokee tale of 2 wolves. An elder explains to his grandson that there's a battle constantly raging inside all people between 2 wolves.
One is fear, representing anxiety, doubt, insecurity, inaction.
Right. And the other wolf is faith, representing conviction, calm, enthusiasm, excitement, action.
And the grandson asks the inevitable question, which wolf wins?
And the elder gives that profound, simple reply, the one you feed. Your journey toward extraordinary results, toward living large, will be built on consciously choosing to feed faith. Faith in your purpose, faith in your priorities, faith in the power of focusing on your one thing. That faith provides the personal power needed to push through inevitable hesitancy and take consistent action.
And taking that action, living that purposeful life, ultimately leads to the wisdom the book distills as no regrets.
Yes. Imagine asking your 80-year-old self for advice. What would they likely tell you? The collective wisdom of elders, the book suggests, is remarkably consistent. Go live your life. Live it fully, without fear. Live with purpose. Give it your all, and never give up.
A life worth living is ultimately a life of no regrets. Avoiding those painful woulda, coulda, shouldas that can haunt people later in life, that feels like the ultimate measure of satisfaction.
It truly does. Which brings us to the powerful concluding idea of the book. Success is an inside joke.
Illustrated by that poignant puzzle analogy.
Yes, the story of the father giving his young son a challenging puzzle, a torn-up map of the world. The son struggles, gets frustrated.
Until he notices something on the back of one of the map pieces. A picture of a person.
Exactly. He gets an idea. He turns all the pieces over and starts assembling the person. Once he puts the person together correctly,
the world just fell into place.
Right.
The map on the other side was perfectly assembled.
The son's inspired solution reveals a deeper code, a fundamental truth. Success is an inside job. Put yourself together, and your world falls into place.
So it starts with us. When you, listening now, bring clarity of purpose to your life, when you truly know your priorities, using the focusing question, and when you achieve high productivity on your single most important priority every single day.
Your life starts to make sense. Things align, and the extraordinary, that big life you imagine, actually becomes possible.
The path is clear. You know what to do. You know how to do it. Your next step is simple. As the book powerfully concludes, you are the first domino.
It all starts with you taking that first focused action.
So now let's make this really concrete. Let's put the one thing to work directly in your life right now. Remember that core tool. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything will be easier or unnecessary?
Let's spark some ideas for applying it. In your personal life, you could ask, what's the one thing I can do this week to discover or affirm my life's purpose such that?
Or maybe something health-related. What's the one thing I can do in the next 90 days to get in the physical shape or faith? I truly want such that.
Or spiritual. What's the one thing I can do today to strengthen my spiritual faith such that?
Developing a skill. What's the one thing I can do consistently to find time to practice the guitar 20 minutes a day such that?
Or improving a hobby. What's the one thing I can do to knock 5 strokes off my golf game in the next 90 days such that? Or creative pursuits. What's the one thing I can do to learn to paint in the next 6 months such that?
Okay, shifting to your job, you could ask, what's the one thing I can do today to complete my current key project ahead of schedule such that?
Or improving quality. What's the one thing I can do this month to produce significantly better work such that? Or career advancement. What's the one thing I can do before my next review to get the raise I want such that?
Or that daily struggle. What's the one thing I can do every day to finish my most important work and still get home on time such that?
How about applying it to your work team? In any meeting, the leader could ask, what's the one thing we absolutely must accomplish in this meeting to make it a success, allowing us to end early such that?
Building the team. What's the one thing I can do as a leader in the next 6 months to find and develop incredible talent such that?
Strategic planning. In planning for the next year, what's the one thing we can commit to right now to accomplish our main goal ahead of schedule and under budgets such that? Or fostering the culture. What's the one thing we can do in our department in the next 90 days to create a genuine one-thing culture such that?
And it applies even more broadly, right, to other areas.
Absolutely. For a nonprofit, what's the one thing we can do this quarter to significantly move towards funding our annual financial needs such that? For a school, what's the one thing we can implement this year to decrease our dropout rate towards 0 such that?
For a place of worship. What's the one thing we can focus on to improve our core worship experience such that? Or for your community, what's the one thing we can do together to tangibly improve our sense of community such that?
The power of the question is its ability to cut through complexity in any domain.
The one thing. Fundamentally, it forces you to think big, then work things through to create a prioritized list, not just a random list. A list where a geometric progression, that domino effect, can actually happen.
And then you hammer away relentlessly on that first thing, the one thing that starts your domino run.
The promise the book makes is simple, but incredibly profound. If you try to do everything, you could wind up with nothing. If you try to do just one thing, the right one thing, you could wind up with everything you ever wanted.
It's about the power of focused effort achieving disproportionate results.
So don't delay. Ask yourself the question right now as you finish listening to this. What's the one thing I can do right now to start using the one thing in my life such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary.
And then crucially, make doing that answer your very first one thing. Start the chain reaction.
Wow. We have really journeyed through the powerful and often counterintuitive principles of the one thing, from understanding that deceptive simplicity of going small and the absolutely incredible exponential power of the domino effect,
To really confronting and debunking those common yet damaging lies that hold so many of us back, things like multitasking being efficient, or the myth of needing a perfectly balanced life, or that willpower is always available on demand.
We've explored how to find your true purpose, how to prioritize effectively using that incredibly precise tool, the focusing question, and how to leverage time blocking for ultimate productivity.
And we dug into those essential commitments, the commitment to lifelong mastery, the shift from just being busy, entrepreneurial, to being effective, purposeful, and the vital importance of living the accountability cycle.
And crucially, we identified those four thieves that are constantly trying to steal your focus: the inability to say no, the paralyzing fear of chaos, neglecting your health habits, and being stuck in an environment that doesn't support your goals and armed you with strategies to protect yourself against them.
This whole deep dive, it was really crafted specifically to provide you with a shortcut to being well-informed on these powerful ideas, to offer you some of those aha moments that can genuinely shift your perspective.
And most importantly, to enlighten and truly motivate you to take decisive action. Because knowing isn't enough. Doing is what makes the difference. The path to extraordinary results using these principles is now much clearer.
So as you step forward from this deep dive today, here's a final provocative thought to consider. If your one thing, that single most important action you identified, is truly the first domino, just imagine what kind of magnificent, perhaps currently unimaginable chain reaction are you about to set in motion for your life starting today? The power truly lies within your next choice, your next action.